Hi there. Today we're going to be having a look at the text file and array question, the problem solving question from the 2019 September preliminary paper from the Free State. If you have a look at the web page, you'll find the question paper in a PDF and the data files for question 4, the one we're busy with now, they are also there and you can download those. Please extract them into a suitable folder, as I have done here, and then open these in Delphi. You click on question 4p, the project file, that will take you to Delphi. We'll be working in form Q4. I'm going to have the question paper open on the sidebar on the right hand side, and there we have them. You'll see that there's a text file in the data. We've got films, the text file that we're going to be working with. The files all have lines with data separated by hashes. We have to test whether the file exists. If not, show a suitable message. Then make use of data types of the arrays given in the code. Let's just have a look at the code. We have these 4 arrays, RSCIC. To be precise, we have these 3 types of arrays, and they are used here. Array title, array genre, array year, and array price. This that you see over here uses the type that is defined earlier just beneath the type header, and that is an array 1 to 100 of string. So we have 2 arrays of string, 1 array of real, 1 array of integer. Right, when button 1 is clicked, let's go to button 1. There we go. And we are going to start by testing to see whether that file exists. If not file exists, the name of the file is films. Begin, show message, and exit. Right, so we're done with finding a file that doesn't exist. Now we can go about opening the file and splitting the values and then storing them in the appropriate arrays. For this, I'm going to need a file variable, a connector that I'm going to call con, and we're going to be working with films. We have to reset it for reading. Remember, reset moves the file pointer to the beginning of the file so that we start reading at the beginning of the file. While not EOF of con. Begin, read line from. And let's store this in a string variable sLine. Right, now we're going to have to process this line. There are 4 values in any line. If I have a look at the example in the image on the right, God bless Ozzy Osbourne, hash action, hash 2004, and then hash the price. So we're going to have a pos hash in S line. That, among other things, means I need this variable p, and that will be an integer. I'm also going to need a variable for the title. Although I can put that directly into the array as well. Maybe I should just do that instead. I will need a variable to keep track of the index of the array as well. So let's use I equals. I just want to check and see where these arrays begin. The arrays begin at 1. So array I equals 1. So array title I copy, and this is just a regular copy. We're copying from S line starting at 1 to p minus 1. Delete from S line 1p. And that's the first bit taken care of. Array genre I copy S line 1, and then delete again. I left out that we're going to need that p. There we go. That's exactly the same routine. We're actually going to need this whole routine again, so I'm just going to copy it again. But instead of genre this time, we're working with the array year array. And array year, if you check up, you'll see is an array of reals. Array year is iSkick, that one, that one. So we're also going to have to convert this into an integer. And what that leaves in S line is one value, so array price helps to spell correctly, array price I, and again this is an array of real, so I'm going to have to convert that string to float, what's left in S line. Now, the one thing that might cause a bit of a hassle, these values I see in the question paper use a decimal point, and I know my computer, because of the cat classes that I take, is set to use a decimal comma. So just to be certain, I'm going to make sure in the form create down at the bottom here that I set decimal operator to be a decimal point. That sort of thing should be done for you, because that's really not part of the test in any way. But it will solve a little bit of problem that I can foresee happening with my particular computer setup if I don't do it now. And there we go. The values are processed into the array. Display a suitable message if the data was read successfully. So we're going to have to do that. The other thing I must do before I go any further is inc I, so that we can go on to the next index and the next array cell. That will now process the whole array. Close file. Always finish up by closing the file. That signals to Windows that you've finished with the file, and if someone else needs to access it, they can. Show message. Anything useful. Right. Let's have a look at 4.2. When button 2 is clicked, display all the data neatly in columns using the headings as shown. So button 2 is here. We're going to separate things using tabs, and we have to start off by adding the headings. This is being shown in a rich edit called red display. Red display clear. The second time we do this, there will already be some values there, so let's erase those. And we can say genre plus #9 plus title plus #9 plus year plus #9 plus price. Notice that the #9 does not fall inside the inverted commas. It's a character code in its own right, so we have to add it independently. Right, now we're going to process all the arrays. I will need a index loop control variable again. At this point, it would be really useful to know how many items I have in the array. I'm just checking to see if we have any variables we are supposed to be using for this. iCount is given. I will assume that that means the number of items that were read. So I can set iCount equals to I. I could also have used iCount as my loop control variable for this while loop, but I prefer to use a local variable for the loop control variable. It's required for for loops, not required for while loops, but I do still prefer to do that. So for I equals, remember the loops, the arrays rather start at 1 to iCount, and it will be iCount minus 1. The last time round we will have added 1 to I. I in a sense refers to the next available cell in the array, not the number of items in the array. So iCount is 1 too many in this instance. Begin, and we're going to add exactly the same thing to the output, excepting that this time round I'm going to take from array genre I, add the #9. You don't have to do everything on the same line as long as you keep adding. The next one will be array title, array year, and array price. Now remember, array year is a integer, so this time around I'm going to do an int to str. There we go. And price, I'm going to have to format. So we can add the R plus this will be float to strf, and we're going to use array price. I'll have to tell it that it is going to be a currency format. I'll also have to make sure I spell float to string f properly. FF currency. There are several digits, so let's add 5 with 2 decimal places, and that should take care of my format. There is another way I could have done this, and that's to use the format function. In most senses, I actually prefer the format function. I would set a variable such as sline, which we can add later, format, and then you build up a format string, %s, %s, with tabs in between. The next one is a decimal, that's %d, the code, plus another tab. And the last one is the nice one, R. We're going to format this, it's a floating point number, so %.2f. The next field in the format function is an array of the values you're going to be adding, which in my case would be array year, array title, array genre, and so on. So it would be a very efficient way of doing it all in one line, but the way I have done it already, that one works fine. Okay, moving on to 4.3. Question number, that's button 4. I'm assuming that that should be button 3, because question 4.4, looking down the page, refers to button 5, which doesn't exist on the screen. So button 4. Display the heading Free State Films in the middle of the rich edit. The heading should be in blue, the font size should be 30, and the style should be bold. I can't say I'm particularly fond of this question, as it's not something that applies particularly to text files or arrays, or even part of the Delphi programming that you should be doing. But if we assume that you're going to be getting a question like this, this refers to properties that you can control of the control, the Delphi control that is on the window. Part of my objection lies in that a rich edit control is Windows specific and will not work in many of the systems that Delphi now runs on. But anyway, if you look at it, we're going to be working with the alignment, and if you look at the top of the rich edit control, you will see there is an alignment property in which you can set the alignment. We're going to have to do this programmatically, but just to show you where these are. We're also going to have to change the heading to blue. These are font properties. If you look, you'll find font has a color. It also has a size. And you have a style option, so we can set FS bold to be true. And all of this can be done programmatically. So let's do that for I'm just checking through to make sure that the buttons are given. Right, so we're going to add that code here. It is red display dot alignment, there we go, equals, and the value was TA center, that's for text align center. Notice the American spelling on center again. Then we can say red display dot font dot color equals CL blue. red display dot font dot size. The last thing we need to do is we need to set the style to bold, so red display dot font dot style. There we go, style. And we need to add the FS bold value. The style property is an array of values so that you can toggle all of these independently, bold, italic, underline, so on. So you make an array of these, FS bold, FS italic, and any other ones that you might need to add. And that's it. Now we output red display dot clear the display again, red display dot lines dot add, and we can add the text free state films. It looks like there are dashes in there. And just to demonstrate, if we run that one quickly and I press button 3, there we have it, big and bold free state films. Now we're then going to have to reset this for the rest of the text. We reset the information, the rest of the information should be right aligned, and we don't want it 30 and we don't want it blue, so let's take these same values and we're going to change that to, just make sure I'm on the correct field. The alignment must be left justify again, left justify, that can be CL black, and this can be a easy to read 10-point font, and there we go. Delphi defaults to 8, I'm making it 10 for the moment. Calculate and display the number and average price per genre of the action comedy films respectively. So we're now going to have to process all the films. This portion of the question is fine. We're going to have to process all the films, identify the action comedies, and add their values together. So we can use a for loop for it because we're going to have to process the entire list. For I starting at 1, ending at I count, -1, begin, if we're going to be looking at the array genre array, just check that name. It's array genre equals, and what we're checking for is action comedy, action and comedy. And we need to check, sorry, my mistake. We're checking for the action films and we are checking for the comedy films. So I'm going to have to count these separately. We are given these two variables, I action and I comedy, already, so I can use those. I action equals, just increment. There we go. And we're going to do the same for the comedy. This doesn't allow it to be both, so I can use else. What I must also do, because I'm interested in the average price, I'm also going to have to add to the price. So R action, which is going to store the price, and I'll have to access that value from array price. There we go. R comedy. Wasn't supposed to jump around, but there we go. Okay, that should calculate the totals of R action and R comedy to get the average, which we're going to show. Calculate the number and the average. So I'm going to say red display dot lines dot add, and it will be int to str I action plus times action and we can add the average now of the price of the action forms, which I'm going to work out beforehand and store in R action again. There's no reason why I can't reuse the variable. R action equals R action divided by I action. Do the same for comedy. R comedy divided by I comedy. Plus I will have to convert this to a string as well, float to strf. I'm going to put this on the next line. No reason why I have to keep it all in the same place, and that is going to be R action FF currency, my precision again about 5 and 2 decimal points, and there we go. We're going to do exactly the same thing for the comedy films. I comedy and refer to R comedy. And that should do it. We'll test it in a moment. Last one, when the last button is pressed, have the user enter the title of the film you want to delete. Using an input box, remove all the data of the chosen film from all the arrays. Display the updated information in the rich edit display. So we're going through, they've already given us some code. While B found is false and A is less than I count, do if array title A is equal to what we're looking for. So we're going to have to use S search as our input string. And we must remove the data there. It doesn't say how we're supposed to remove the data. There are a few options. Anyway, S search input box. Remember, an input box has 3 parameters, so we can add the first one, the caption, delete from list. There we go. The last one is the default value. We're going to leave that one blank. That's the first bit. Now, at its simplest, deleting from the arrays would simply be array titles A in this case. Notice the counter that has already been used is A, colon equals, and set that to nothing. And the last one is array price, which we'll also set to nothing. But what could well be implied in this question is that they want to update the entire array and go through until the end of the array and shift all the values up. Now, in my own personal programming style, I wouldn't do this inside the loop as is here. We've found the particular value or the CD we're looking for, so I shouldn't have to process this loop any further. I should be able to exit this loop there and then do this after the loop. But anyway, this is where they want it, so let's add the code to process this here. The second indication that we might well be intended to shift all the values up is we are provided with B, this second integer, which isn't used in this routine. So what I'm going to have to do is something along these lines. For B now equals A to I count -1, do begin, and rather than just setting the values to nothing, I am going to need to do that, but I'm going to do that for the very last one right at the end. So I'm going to make a copy of those routines and just leave them for later reference. We're going to use our B value now, and I'm going to refer to array title B plus 1. And over here, array genre B plus 1. This will shift up all the values in the array so that there are no blank spots in the middle of the list. But it does mean that the very last one will be one after I count. In other words, it's going to copy the values from the next empty cell. So I can actually delete these values. I'm not going to need those. And that will erase any particular value. Now, if found, from not found, else, this is where I would have preferred to put this. I'm just trying to check and see if there's some processing that should have been included that I don't see. Array title, be found is true. Check the question. Alright, so down here we have to display the updated information in the rich edit. Now we already have a routine to display the information. That routine is this first one, button to click. There's absolutely no reason why I can't call that particular button. btn to click. And that will update all the information in the display. Otherwise, if you wanted to go that route, you could copy all the code from button to click, and that would do the same job. And that's it. That's the end of that question paper. So, I hope you didn't find that too difficult. I'll see you all again shortly.